The Senators with a nice victory. They were down 2-0 early on. They looked awful in Toronto. Looked like, I don't know, they had sweating Christmas gravy or something in the early going, still on their holiday break. They fall behind 2-0 in the first 6 minutes, but then slowly, the midway point of the game, they get a Parker Kelly shorthanded goal, beautiful pass from Claude Giroux, then a couple of goals from Drake Batherson, and they end up winning 4-2, 4 unanswered goals. Fairly impressive the way they came back in that game. But for my money, I know a lot of people are excited about it, giving a lot of credit to Jonas Korpisalo, and he deserves some. But to me, that game looked like what DJ Smith was always pining for at the end of losses. Close losses. Oh, he didn't get any bounces tonight. They got bounces in a big way in the game in Toronto.
They did, but they did get some big saves too. Steve Korpisalo
They
deserves some
did.
credit, but I thought it's sort of one of those games where the Senators are famous for certain big events happening in the middle of a game where they either need a goal now or they need to shut them down, and it just they're at 2-0 and they really need to get the next goal, or they're up by a goal and they get a power play and they really need to score in this power play, and they usually fail. This
Right,
game was
right.
different. They had the poor start. I'd like to think it's the Jacques Martin preaching patience that allowed them to stay in the game, even though they played terribly. Get into the second period, they're still not getting all that many chances, but they didn't give up the third goal. And then you're down 2-0 in the second period. The Leafs get a power play, and you got to have a kill here, boys. And not only do they get the kill, they get the Parker Kelly goal. And I thought that really turned the game around. That was the TSN turning point right there. Was the shorty by Parker Kelly that turned everything around, and the comeback was on from there. I thought they looked good. One of those games where you play that well, you're going to win the most nights, and they did for the most part. For at least 2/3 of the game, they played well enough to win, and they did win.
Yep. Korpisalo had 34 saves in the game. Batherson with the tying goal, which was some good fortune. I mean, it was a pretty harmless shot from Tim Stutzle down the left wing that Jones just sort of kicked out right to Batherson at an open cage to put it in. So the game is tied at that stage. And the play I think everybody's talking about was the third goal, which ended up standing up as the winner. To me, it brought back memories of the 2017 playoffs, Senators against the Rangers. You get Erik Karlsson down below the goal line, flings it at the net, and somehow it goes in off of Henrik Lundqvist's shoulder and in. It was almost the same spot. Batherson's probably a little closer, but he's down below the goal line in the corner and takes almost a half slapper that goes in off Martin Jones' shoulder. It delays for a second and then plunk just over the goal line, and that ends up being your game winner. I don't know if you encourage that kind of shot selection, but it certainly was a welcome bit of luck for the Sens on that play.
Well, we've seen him do it before, Steve. We've seen him attempt it numerous times, and I can think of at least one other time when he scored off that play. He has been successful with it. He wasn't just firing it willy-nilly and hoping. He was aiming for Jones's head. There was no doubt about it. He was successful in doing exactly what he was attempting to do. And I thought it was pretty cool to see, and I was a little disappointed actually with the coverage on the television there. I thought they would have pulled up the footage of the last time he did it to say, this isn't a fluke. This guy's done this before. Well, we can get into discussing the whole TV coverage. Are we going to do that, Steve? Are we going to talk about that? But I thought it was he did it on purpose and it worked, and he's done it before.
Yeah, I mean, of course it was on purpose. I mean, otherwise he's trying to put it up in the stands on the far side. There's no doubt about that. So, I mean, good for him.
Mhm.
But, I mean, he even admitted, it was lucky that it went in there. But sometimes, you don't have anybody to pass to. You're in a bad spot.
And he's
So
hot.
rather than, yeah, exactly. And Jacques Martin apparently talked to him about things. Batherson spoke about that to the Hockey News Ottawa, which I tend to give a plug to now and then as the site editor, thn.com/Ottawa, if you want to read about that. But Jacques Martin, basically, when he came back to the bench, he, after Batherson had just, hit one in the geographic center of the opposing goalie's crest, Martin takes him aside and says, listen, just rip it. Just stop thinking, rip it, trust your shot. And sure enough, not that long after that, I'm not sure it was the same game in Toronto, but that conversation happened not that long ago. And sure enough, he decides to rip it and he gets a break. And Batherson, man, what a turnaround.
Mhm.
Like, the critics were on this guy to the stage of, that guy is a, defensive liability. That guy is just not scoring enough. He doesn't seem to have the effort required. And it's funny how when pucks start going in and points start piling up, and by the way, he's also got that plus minus under check.
Yeah.
Last year, minus 35. This year, he's plus one. So he's the second leading scorer on the Ottawa Senators. And so I think there's a reason we haven't heard from the Batherson critics much of late.
Yeah, and here's a guy who started the year, 7 games, I think, without a point, or was it 7 games without a goal to open the
Yeah.
season. He didn't start well. His plus minus was not good. I think the criticism of his defensive play is probably justified, but it's gotten better. And now that Jacques Martin is here, it will only get better. A lot of these players are going to become much better all around hockey players now that you've got Jacques Martin here in town, and I look forward to seeing it. And the Drake is one of those guys. I mean, maybe he doesn't become fully a Marian Hossa, but he can certainly become that type of player, one that can be trusted in all three zones, one that can kill penalties, play the power play, play 5-on-5, rack up the points. This is a guy who can really be something, and the contract is glorious as far as
Oh,
his
yeah.
paycheck goes and the salary cap. Like, he's a guy you want to be hot. He's a guy you want to be playing well, and if he can be a point a game player, hey, it's all the more better for the Sens down the road.
Yeah. Glorious. The Ottawa Senators have signed Drake Batherson to a glorious contract. That's exactly what it ends up being. It's an amazing contract. You get that guy for under $5 million a year. It's bananas, but sometimes players acknowledge, how much money do you need in this world, and he's happy with the organization. There's probably a little bit of him that sees Stutzle getting paid and Norris getting paid and Sanderson getting paid. He's probably a little bit going, but at the end of the day, you're 25 years old, making $5 million a year, and you're having the time of your life. There'll be money waiting for him in, I don't know, that contract ends in, was it 3 or 4 years, something like that? I don't know exactly what it is, but he'll get another opportunity, another kick at the can as an established scorer in the NHL. But I want to also mention another thing about Batherson talking about the coaching staff now. And as we've mentioned in previous episodes, we shouldn't turn this into oh, he likes the new coaching staff and describes it this way. That's not necessarily an indictment of the old coaching staff. It can be, but we shouldn't jump to those conclusions. I thought this was an interesting quote here that I've got in front of me. I've got my horrible reading glasses that may, in fact, be women's glasses. But moving on. But he said, a lot of teaching when asked about Jacques Martin, the staff, and Daniel Alfredson. If I come to the bench and I did something wrong, they're showing me, and then it's glued in my mind after that. That might be one of those ones, despite what I just said, where I say, okay, maybe that is something on DJ
Yeah.
Smith, because I've seen on a number of occasions in games, conversations happening. I mean, don't get me wrong, Capuano's talking to them all the time. I see that, but I didn't see DJ Smith having on bench conversations with players when they come off the ice. And to me, that's an important thing to do, not to do it 15, 20 minutes from now in the intermission. Like, you want it while it's fresh, because they're going to go have 4 or 5 more shifts maybe before the intermission, and the player might not even have a clue what the hell you're talking about anymore. I think it's important to have that conversation in the heat of action. What do you think?
Well, it's what's known as a teachable moment, Steve, and they come up in
Right.
games, and that's the time right then and there to make the point. Give the guy a couple 10, 15 seconds to catch his breath, and then be whispering in his ear. The teachable moments are there, and I agree with you. Jack Capuano does seem to be one who speaks to the players. I've seen him a lot with his D guys. I don't know that I saw Davis Payne do a lot of talking with forwards either. And we've often spoken about forwards in the defensive zone being lost and looking like they have no clue what they're doing. We see some mix-ups on switching off and finding your assignments and where to go and what to do. And these are teachable moments and opportunities for guys to get in your ear. And it doesn't have to be negative. I doubt anything that's being said to these guys right now is ever negative. There's a positive little, or even if it's about a negative thing, it's said in a positive manner. And it's good for the players. It's good for the coaching staff. It's nice to see. And yeah, I agree with you. This might be one of those times where, yes, I am complimenting the new coach, and at the same time, it's a backhanded, no, it's more of a forehand. It's a forehanded shot at the old guy, that it wasn't something that was there before.
Yeah, and of course that exists. Otherwise, DJ Smith would have a job. But,
True.
obviously, Jacques Martin was brought in for a reason, and it's just that not everything that players say that they like about the new coach indicates that there was an absence of that virtue in the old coaching staff. Now, I want to talk to you about Shane Pinto's return next month. Shane Pinto is now at the 30 game mark as of now. So he's 11 games away from returning to the Ottawa Senators lineup after the violation of the gambling rules of the NHL. So 11 games from now, the Sens take on the Winnipeg Jets. I personally think you throw him right in there, although I've heard conversation about he's going to need some time and all that. I would personally put him right back in there ASAP because he seems like a player that is on the precipice of a breakout type season. In the context of that, I guess it's about 10 days ago now, Jeff O'Neill, the former NHLer, very good on TSN radio and TSN television, um, never afraid to speak his mind, obviously a knowledgeable hockey guy, good long career in the NHL. He was really adamant that the Senators make what would be a fairly seismic shift in their roster involving Tim Stutzle. Let me play the clip for you. This is from TSN 1050, like I say, about 10 days ago.
The second thing is Tim Stutzle, put him on right wing. He's not a centerman. I do not think that that kid's a centerman. If you look at the way he plays, I think he's a Pavel Bure type player. The way he skates, the way he wants to operate, I don't see him as a guy that wants to dig in the corners and do center iceman work. So when that Pinto comes back, put him at center ice and put the kid on right wing.
What say you about Jeff O'Neill's comments? And again, they're courtesy of TSN 1050. Does Tim Stutzle belong at center, or would you think he'd be better off like a Pavel Bure type out on the wing?
I see the point. His speed says he can fly up and down the wing. I think his playmaking skill at this point in his career, I think a lot of his playmaking skill is based more on the last decision rather than the first decision. He's not a pass first guy. I'm going to dangle this guy and then maybe try to get a shot on net, or I'm going to shoot, or I'm going to, like, it's always the dangle or the shot comes before the pass. So in that sense, he's not exactly a playmaker or a centerman. Defensively, though, he's gotten so much better. He has such a quick stick in the D zone. And when he's down low, down deep in the zone, you see him stealing pucks off guys. So I don't think that is as much a deficit as it used to be. His biggest deficit at center to me is in the faceoff circle. He's simply not. Is it upper body strength? I mean, well, actually, you need lower body strength to win draws too. Is it speed? Is it tactical? Is it something technically that's off? He's just not good enough in the faceoff circle at this point in time. So when Pinto does come back, you've got Greg there now. I always thought it'd be Greg who's going to move to the wing, but maybe it is a Stutzla. I don't think I'd be doing it yet. I think I'd be hanging on and leaving him down the middle for now. But what are you thinking?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you can't argue with the results right now. I mean, he does have his moments that are, not calamitous, but he does have his moments where I say, man, he falls a lot. Or maybe he's not in the lane that I expect a center iceman to be in D zone coverage. Still a little bit of that kid in him. I think Jacques Martin is going to work with him on that. And I think if you can't figure out the center ice position at a real elite level under the likes of Jacques Martin, then maybe I buy into Jeff Neal's argument. I still think it's very early in the game to write him off as a center because I do think that he does so many great things with the puck that gets them, you almost take for granted the skill level that guy has with the puck. That if the defenseman runs into the corner and he's down low, kind of filling in the gap between the battle for the puck and the net, the puck squirts out to him, and you see some of the sneaky little plays he makes to get the puck out of the zone. That's a real asset. The guy is so skilled that I want to see if that works out. I'm not 100% on him at center long term, but I certainly think that any glitches that we've seen to this stage will be ironed out by Jacques Martin because that's his MO, the details of the game. We've said it a million times. And there still, I think, are a few details of the game, including the faceoffs, that that Stutzle needs to work on to be truly considered, an elite, a truly elite center. I think he's an elite player in the game, but the center ice position is so crucial on the D side of things. So I measure it, against a guy like Patrice Bergeron, a guy who puts up points, a guy who's elite defensively. If you're the number one center on a Stanley Cup contender, you have to be better defensively right now than Tim Stutzle is, and I think he'll get there.
Yeah, and it's coming. It's coming along. I think I'm looking at the lineup when Pinto comes back. I'm not sure if Joseph's going to be back by then or not,
They're
but I'm
saying 3
thinking,
weeks at least.
okay, and that's Pinto time frame as well. 24th, I think it is.
Right. 20th.
20th. Okay, so you keep Norris with Kachuk and Giroux. You keep Tarasenko, Batherson, and Stutzla together. That gives you a third line of Pinto, Joseph, and is it Kubalik? And that
I
gives you
think
a
so.
fourth. Yeah, right. And that gives you a fourth line of Greg and Kastelik and Kelly. That's okay with
I don't
me.
know. I'm really enjoying Crookshank's game.
Okay, so Crookshank, anybody, but I think Greg and Kastelik and somebody is your fourth
Right.
line, right?
Yeah.
But that your
like
third
that.
line becomes Pinto, Joseph, Kubalik. That's okay. I just think that I don't see Shane Pinto being a top 6 guy at this point in his career. So I don't think he's the guy you're going to move up there just so that you can get Stutzla out of the middle and onto the wing. I don't see that.
Right.
I think it's a Greg or a Kastelik move to the wing on a lower line rather than moving Stutzla on an upper line.
All right, let's take a timeout on the program. Boy, it'll be interesting from a cap perspective. You get Shabbat coming back in, so not on LTIR anymore. You still have Joseph, I guess you could put on long-term injured reserve, but you got to sign Shane Pinto. It's going to get interesting, when you figure all this out, because I think Shane Pinto is going to be north of $2 million, and I don't think that'll be enough. So
No,
they may before all. Go ahead.
he'll sign for about 900,000. They got him over a
Oh.
barrel now, Steve. They got him over a barrel now.
Yeah, I suppose he doesn't have too much leverage at this moment. I think
No.
I think if all things were equal and the old gambling thing didn't happen, I think he could press for that. But now that you mention it, yeah,
Well, yeah. Imagine if he was just a holdout early from the part of the start they got off to. Like by about game 10, they were ready. They would have made a deal and signed him. Then okay, we'll sign. We give up. But because the suspension happens and he sits around doing nothing, I think they got him over a barrel now. And the play of Greg certainly helps too. I think they're okay. Anyway, you were going to go to a break. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't think they're okay still. I mean, because if Joseph is getting back, Pinto is being re-signed. Shabbat will long be back in the lineup by then, although he's been so injury prone this year. Who knows? Like that's
Somebody's still got to go.
8 million, 3 million, a million. I'm going to say a million. I don't care.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money to inject back in without any long-term injured relief coming. So yeah, somebody will probably have to go between now and January 20th. It will be interesting to see who that is.